Thanks for staying with us. I'm John Hill, the host of Nonprofit Spotlight. And here today again, we're here with Dr. Deborah Matthews from Children's Center, where we're finding all about adoption, we're finding out about foster care and all the other things the Children's Center does. So, Ms. Matthews, this month is Awareness Month for foster care.
Right. Actually, it's National Foster Care Awareness Month.
Oh, really?
And so for decades, we've always taken this as an opportunity to do a couple of things. One is to appreciate the families who've taken that plunge and that they have a heart to really take care of children and they've opened their homes up. So part of that is appreciating them. And so we have a variety of events that say thank you to them.
Right.
And then the other part of it is to increase the awareness in our community overall, because we're always looking for additional families who are willing to take in children. So it's about recruiting families and helping them to understand the importance and the need in our community.
Well, let me ask you this question. I want to go into what it takes for somebody to become a foster parent, other than a very big heart, to really want to help and care for people. And I actually want to go into sometimes, because I recently went to a foster care adoption seminar, because me and my wife are still, thinking about looking, forward to maybe adoption or foster care. But I want to say some people were thinking about, and I didn't even have this concept, that foster care is just about getting and receiving a check from the state or something like that.
Well, I mean, that's really the least of the benefit, of course, of foster care. So you've got children who've been taken out of their birth home. And for any child, no matter what they had to face, that's a trauma for them. It's very traumatic to be yanked away from mom or dad or the caregiver. And so you've got families out there who've said, I think I'm interested in that. And it starts like kind of you did, having kind of an orientation and
that's exactly
recruitment
what it was.
Seminar to explain what it takes to do this. It's not easy necessarily, but it's not tough either. Because what we want to determine is how suitable you are. So we want you to understand all of the rules and regulations related to being a foster care parent, and what the state will require of you. We want to make sure that, number one, the child is going to be safe in your home. So there's a licensing of the home that's important to make sure that all of the pieces in the home there's not anything there that would be a danger to the child.
Right, like lead paint. And
those kinds of things. Looking at the sleeping quarters to make sure they're adequate.
Absolutely.
Looking at the safety of locks and not having locks and windows. I mean, there's a whole list of things that we look at to make sure the children will be safe in their homes. And so that's a part of the process. The process actually could take as much as 6 months or as little as 30 to 45 days.
Really?
And a lot of it depends on the family in that first step is training. There's quite a bit of training that goes on to learn the do's and don'ts, to learn what our expectations are with respect to your parenting skills, what our expectations are with respect to you keeping that child in touch with their families when that's possible, with their siblings when that's possible. And so learning all those rules, learning the fact that you've got to take care of that child's medical conditions, to get an exam by a physician right away, their dental care, all of those issues. Their schooling, how are you going to manage that? Child care, how you're going to manage that. So
questions are just popping up in my. Well, let me ask you this about managing their health care and dental and all that kind. Is that something that you pay for out of your own pocket, or is that something that the state pays for?
There are parts of that the state pays for, of course, because the child is in that system. The part for you as a family is facilitating that. How do you get them to those appointments? Meeting the timelines, because there are requirements about doing it within a time frame. And the great thing is the Children's Center is here to help you with all of that.
That's great.
One of the wonderful things about our organization is that in addition to the foster care program, we have support in the areas of the child needing mental health services, behavioral health services. We have connections with physicians. We actually have a pediatric clinic right on site at our building. And we have a dental clinic right on site. So we help facilitate those connections.
Really?
And if the family is not already connected with the pediatrician because they have their kids involved in one, then we help them in every step of the way.
Yeah, I would imagine since you've been around since 1929, not that there's new things happening, but you've pretty much seen it all.
Oh,
And so
yeah.
you're really able to help the foster care parents with some trials and tribulations that they might not, be used
Yeah,
to.
they may not anticipate.
Right.
If they're already a parent, typically it makes it easier.
Right.
But you can qualify as a single male, single female.
That's important.
Yeah. And as long as you're age 18, we've had a foster parent that's 82 years old.
You're kidding me.
So
You're
yes,
kidding me.
some older
That
folks.
you're answering all my questions.
Yeah.
I don't even have to.
And I think that's tremendous
That
because
is.
young ones can learn a lot from our elderly population,
Absolutely.
and the love of having that grandmother, grandfather type of person, that's critical.
Yeah, and there's so much, especially in that situation, but in any situation when you adopt or foster care, it's giving and receiving on both ends.
Absolutely.
That, it's constant. It's the way God designed it. If you will.
I've heard some foster parents share the experience. First, they're fearful. Child's being brought into your house, sometimes in the middle of the night,
Right.
sometimes with 4 or 5 children's center staff coming along.
Really?
Yeah, to help with that orientation.
And sometimes this happens. It's not like 9 to 5 hours, if you will.
Oh no. They basically, those workers are just wonderful people because they are basically on call 24/7. And so when the need is there, if a child's taken out at 2 in the morning, we've got to step into place. And so what happens at the state level, the state makes the decision, and then they call based on a foster parent that we have in the computer in a particular neighborhood that they're interested in keeping the child involved in the neighborhood zip code that the home was in.
Absolutely, that's important.
Yes, for that continuity, so life can remain somewhat normal for them. And so if we're able to actually get that family engaged, we get a very short time to do it. And so when we do, what we want to do is to get that child and family connected as soon as possible. So sometimes that's at 2 a.m.
Yeah, and now when somebody becomes a foster parent, do you know how long that this child is going to stay with you? How does that work?
Well, it's kind of complicated in that we don't know that up front. So the family basically is saying, I'm willing for whatever time it takes to support that child and keep them in my home. And the courts really make those decisions about how long and if the child is able to go back with their parent. Because the reality is we'd love for that to happen as much as possible.
Right.
It's a short period and we provide support for the birth family
Right.
so that whatever the issues were, hopefully we can get beyond that and help them be able to get their children back.
Well, let me say this, I want to get into the adoption, part of it too, but just you telling me and saying what you said so far, me learning, it really takes a spirit of nothing but giving, it seems like, to be a foster parent.
Absolutely. It's got to be tough, knowing you're taking in a child that may not be able to remain with you.
Right.
You may have your thoughts and your eyes on adoption.
Yeah.
And
you're
so it's tough.
falling in love with the child, with the child.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I've experienced that, having a child in my home that I really didn't want to let go of, and it wasn't official adoption, but it was someone who was staying with me, and it was so tough after a little over a year to say, oh my God, this child needs to go back with their parent.
Yeah.
And so, it takes a special individual.
It definitely takes a special individual.
And it takes education. They have to understand what this process is about. They have to understand the risk, understand what they're taking on, in this relationship, and be willing to take that step.
Okay, well, we got to take a break here. We're going past. This is just so interesting. I just want to keep on going. We could probably interview for 2 hours and not even, scratch the surface. But let's take a break right now. We'll talk a little bit more about foster care and get into a little bit about the adoption, and what the Children's Center, does and how it helps people with adoption and make those crossroads, if you will.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll be right back after these messages with more Nonprofit Spotlight. And do the world a favor and do these children a favor right now. Call your friends, call your family that may be thinking about being a foster parent or adopting a child into their family. There's so many kids out there right in our community, right here, that we can help. And, we don't have to reach too far to be able to help these children. So we'll be right back after these messages. Thanks for staying with us on this Nonprofit Spotlight. We've learned a lot so far about foster care. We're about to go into adoption and how that can happen for you, how it will benefit the lives of children, and how it would also benefit your life. We're here with Dr. Deborah Matthews of the Children's Center. And Dr. Matthews, again, I can't thank you so much for, or enough for coming here and sharing this with us and sharing this with Detroit. You know, we were left off at the foster care, and we left off at once you have a child, you know, that you're caring and loving so much, and then that child is, you know, ultimately the whole idea is for maybe the family to have a break, get things together, and then bring that child back into their original family, right? Is that correct?
That's correct. Actually, the adoption process starts at the very beginning. So in other words, we get a child, we've placed them with the family, and we immediately start thinking about if this leads to adoption because the courts say that parental rights have been terminated.
Okay, the foster care leading to adoption,
yes,
right?
Absolutely. For the Children's Center, that's the only type of adoption that we handle, or ones that start with our foster care children.
Okay.
Or a foster care child that the state has transferred to our organization for management. So basically, we think about that from the beginning, and it's kind of like, because we want children to not linger in that foster care category for too long. You know, a year is a long time, 2 years is a long time,
yeah.
And we really don't want that. So we're certainly working very hard at, okay, what would that look like if we ended up going to adoption? Is that family interested in adoption? And if they are not, then how might we facilitate that with a different family? So we really have to plan carefully. We don't want the child to have to go from family to family, so we want to make a good placement from day one.
Right.
You know, if that placement isn't successful, then the child is re-traumatized by having to go to a different family.
Absolutely.
So it's a tough job, but it's so rewarding when you see that success and families really adjust well and the child starts to blossom.
What is the, with foster care, is there an age range, or can it start from a very young child who is just born? You know,
Absolutely. It can start from a child being born still in the hospital. You know,
Really?
it can start from that point. In terms of the need, right now we have a tougher time placing the older youth.
Okay.
So the 16 and up category is
And it's
really
16
tough.
to 17 or 16 to 18?
16 to 18.
Okay.
Typically, we don't place too many who are at 18. It's basically they transition to 18. And believe it or not, at 18, children are not ready to be on their own. So although...
I know about that.
Yes,
I think we all do.
definitely, yes.
Yeah.
So although you would think, okay, I'm an adult now, I can go off and be on my own, they really still need supports. And one of our main focuses for that 16 and up group, and it really starts before then, is to help them to understand how important education is.
Right.
So the first thing we want is for them to do well in school. We help facilitate that, meeting with school officials, helping parents navigate that process, and then further education, you know, helping them to study for the ACT and SAT and get ready for college or vocational school or a job. You know, sometimes they don't want to go to college, but then if you're not, then you still have to take care of yourself. So we really focus on that self-sufficiency at the point that they're 16 and up. It's time for adulthood. Let's get them prepared for that and help them with skills, life skills.
Right. You know, I was just thinking about, when you were talking too, about the placement of some of the children, and what if it's, say, there's a different denomination or a different race, if you will, or it's only one race, the human race, but
Right.
you know, a different ethnic background. Is that a problem with foster parents? I mean, do we have Catholics staying with Jewish families, or, you know, Muslims?
Yeah, those kind of screenings are done kind of in advance. So as a prospective foster parent, we want to know what you're willing to do.
Okay.
So let's say you're a Christian, so we would want to know, are you willing to take on a child that may be of the Jewish faith or some other faith?
Right.
And because if you are, then you're committing to help that child maintain themselves in that community and with that.
Right,
and
right.
so sometimes families are, and other families will say, no, I want a Christian child, or you
Right.
know, or some other specification.
Or a black child or a white child.
Exactly, exactly. You know, while those things are important, they're not the only thing that we look at in terms of placement.
Okay. And the children, are there, and we talked a little bit about this before we were rolling, but are there some, you know, a lot of people think if I get a foster child, this foster child is going to be filled with problems. They're going to be riddled with, you know, they're going to be ready to burn the house down or all that kind of thing. How is that screening process, and how, if children do have some, you know, problems, which we all do, are there counseling that you work with? Yeah.
Yes, and actually in the kind of licensing process, that's part of the questions that we ask families. Are you willing to take a child who may have be assessed to have a major behavior problem?
Right.
Are you willing to take a child who has a medical difficulty?
Right.
You know, we call some of them medically fragile. They have some physical issue going on or mental or behavioral issue going on. And so those families get to specify that up front. And so that makes the matching process easier. When we get a child and get initial assessment that the state has made, then we can match that with a family in the right area that is willing to take that type of child. So once they do, then we're there to support them. So the Children's Center is always there to help facilitate that. We have behavioral aides, we have mental health therapists, psychiatrists, psychologists, so we're able to provide the kinds of services that the child may need so that there is a better chance of that placement being successful and the family being able to provide the needs of that child.
And how many, and I know we're about to go into another break. It seems like these breaks are happening so fast that, you know, but I wanted to ask the question about well, not only the placement of the children, but I guess the best way to say it, how many children do we have out there that need our help, that need placement in foster care? I mean, what are the numbers?
Right now, there are about 14,000 in our state that are currently in the foster care system. The state has them in the system. And so of that, in Wayne County, it's nearly half of those. So you can imagine in Wayne County,
So
inner
about
city of
6.
Detroit, you know, there are many, many children that are currently in the system. And the rate at which many children are being taken out of the home is greater in our county.
And it's happening, yeah, more, but the numbers are getting
Yes.
larger, I would imagine.
The numbers are getting larger. Actually, the number in the state right now is probably about 2,000 lower than it was 2 years ago. And one of the main reasons for that is there's been a great focus on trying to preempt the child being taken away. There's prevention that can be done with families who we know are struggling.
Wow.
So let's prevent them having to be taken
And
out
you-
by giving support to the family.
And you help with that also?
We help with that as well. There are a number of organizations that will give support to those families so that the child doesn't get taken away. And if there's been a previous time when the child was removed from the home and they've gone back, then the Children's Center would be there helping that birth family so that it doesn't happen again.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's really critical to try to prevent as much as possible.
Yeah.
So when the need is there, and the reason we really are focusing this month on recruitment of families, because we're low in the number in terms of families who have ready available beds, they're called,
Right.
to receive a family. So we're really pushing and encouraging families, come on out, listen to this process. It's not as daunting as maybe you've heard. And if you're not interested in adoption, that doesn't mean that you can't become a foster family.
Absolutely, yeah, because
So-
some roads, sometimes fostering leads to adoption, as you were saying.
Exactly. I mean, there have been some families who fostered for 20 years and never have adopted. And that's okay, because with our focus of helping children go back to their birth families, then they're the kind of family who can keep them for a short time and not be traumatized themselves with having to turn them back to their families.
Absolutely. Okay, well, let's take one more break. But before we take a break, can you look right in that camera and say a number that people can reach you if they're interested in fostering or helping?
We have a great need for foster families of all ages, 18 and up, and you can call the Children's Center at 313-262-1119.
All right. Well, thank you very much. We're going to take one more break, and we're going to come back and kind of wrap up the,
Okay.
you know, all the things that we need to wrap up so people can get in touch with you
Okay.
and help with your efforts. Let me just say this, though. I am realizing how much people that are into foster care and helping with foster care, how they are really true heroes.
They are, absolutely.
Yeah, You know,
Absolutely.
you forget Superman, it's about to come out recently, and Batman, but these are the heroes in our community that are really saving these kids' lives. And that's what I wanted to say. They actually, fostering a child could really save that child's life.
Absolutely. It can just change their whole future just
Absolutely.
by the bit that you plant. You know, you talked earlier about, you know, what the Bible says about, but sometimes it's about just watering, you know, planting the right thing,
There you go.
watering it. You may not even personally see what the fruit of that's going to be, but that's okay. We've bettered society by now planting something and watering something in a child that's going to help all of us.
Everybody does their part.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, we'll be right back after these messages, and we're going to get into a little bit more about the Children's Center and how you can help out with these, I guess, just wonderful and miraculous efforts to foster our children and adopt our children. So we'll see you after these messages. We're back with Nonprofit Spotlight. We thank you for staying with us, and we've been learning about foster care and adoption, but what I really didn't know is that is only about 25% of what the Children's Center does. So although we want to wrap up on, and there's no such thing as wrapping up on foster care or adoption, but I want to get into a little bit more about all the things that you offer that we were talking about, you know, during a commercial break. I'm amazed. So if you can just set the stage, what else does the Children's Center do?
So the Children's Center, like I stated before, our mission is to help children and families shape their own futures. So a vast majority of our children live with their birth families or a caregiver where there isn't a problem in which they have to be taken out of their home.
Right.
And so we provide behavioral health services. We provide services for those who have developmental disabilities, including autism. Children who have difficulties at school, ADHD, those kinds of issues that are very serious for our kids.
Absolutely.
And some of the children have more severe issues, schizophrenia and bipolar, those kinds of issues. And we have nearly 300 therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists that provide support and
Right here in
counseling
this
for those
area?
kids. Right in Midtown Detroit.
You're kidding me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even get into where you're located, but
Yeah, we're on Alexandrine between Woodward and Cass, and we also have a second building on the other side on Alexandrine between Woodward and John R. So we have a nice little campus
That's
there,
good.
and like I said, nearly 300 staff, see 7,500 kids and families each year.
that's impressive.
And so we would encourage
And I'm just,
families.
what would we do without you?
Oh my gosh. Well, you know, we're honored to be in this business because we really think children are the real heroes, and families who have to deal with these children are very critical. And oftentimes they just need a little bit of help, a little bit of support. And if we don't do that as society, it's our job as
Right.
adults. If we don't do that, you know, where's our future going to be?
Exactly.
You know,
exactly.
we have to support children. You know, if you look at what they hear in the media and what they learn, this information that's expanding in the world, those kinds of things frighten kids.
Yes, they do.
And kids have been traumatized by what, unfortunately, some adults have done to them. You know, some of our kids
Yeah.
have been sexually abused, physically abused,
Right.
and not treated well. And so it's our job to first let them know that there is a children's center around and that we want them to come down and get services. And our focus is serving the whole child, meaning that all of their needs, not just the mental health and behavioral health, but the physical health needs, their dental health needs, helping families,
Yeah.
helping parents learn how to parent.
Right,
You know,
right.
they
Helping
didn't take
people
that
help
class,
people.
and you know, so
Yeah.
all of that has to come together. We can't serve the child and then send them home to a family who hasn't been involved.
Right.
So we want to help them, believing that families really know what's best for their child, and we help guide them in that direction.
That's
So one of the
excellent.
first questions we ask them is, what do you want for your child? You know, what looks like success for you? Can you describe what would be what you would think of as a child being very successful, and then we help them get there.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was just talking to one of my friends about working from the back forward. So what do you want?
Right.
And now you figure out how you're going to get there, and that's what you do.
Exactly. And so we come from the place of respect for these families. A lot of times they're guilty, you know, figuring, what did I do wrong, or how did I let my child get in this situation? And so we first really just let's get beyond that. Let's look at where we want to be.
Right.
And we can talk about how we at the Children's Center can help you get there.
Okay. Now, if somebody wants to, and I'm asking you, what's the phone number that they can reach you at?
So our general Children's Center number, our intake department is 313-262-1212.
Okay. And who do they ask for if they come?
They just tell the person on the phone what their issue is, what their concern is. The person on the phone is a trained specialist.
Okay.
So they know the questions to ask. They'll do a quick phone screening, and they'll get them in for an intake appointment.
And what if somebody's watching right now and wants to call and like has a crisis on their hands? Do you ever get parents calling like,
Absolutely.
my kid is going crazy and I don't know what to do?
We actually have a crisis center because it's a
Okay.
behavior issue sometimes that
That's-
parents feel like they're out of control. So they can call that same number and they will get connected to our crisis center.
Well, I want to salute you. I want to thank you, Deborah Matthews. I was going to say Dr. Matthews. Is it a?
I'll take that, but it's not quite yet.
All right. Well, I'm sure there's a doctor very soon on your horizon too. But all the things you're doing far more than far more than most people are doing in our society. And no matter what their title is, and I thank you for that. But we were talking about what will we do without services like yours.
Absolutely. You know, it's our honor to provide these services because we really believe that as adults, we're going to pay for what happens with these children. We're going to either do it now, we're going to put the work in and help them be better now, or we're going to pay later. And unfortunately, sometimes that's with incarceration or homelessness of children that we have to put even more dollars behind to support once they become adults. So let's work on it now.
That'll
That's our mission.
That'll work. And
To help-
hope. Oh, go ahead.
To help bring that hero out in the child.
There you go.
Because there's something special in each one of the children, no matter what they're dealing with, and it's our job to bring that out and point it out to them so that they can be successful.
Right, and that's interesting that you say that because you don't only bring the hero out in the child, but you bring the hero out in the parent or the hero out in the foster
Absolutely.
parents.
And that's right, and get beyond the guilt, of what may have happened. Let's get to the solution. So again, foster parents, birth parents, we feel that parenting is special, and we want to help families be successful by giving them the skills they need to be able to do what we need to do to our youngsters. We also have a Head Start Academy.
Okay.
And so early intervention is so very critical, early education. At our Head Start Academy, we're in zip code 48219, and we are able to enroll children between 3 and 5 and give them that early start they need. So by the time they get to kindergarten, they are ready to learn.
That'll work.
So that's all a part of it. So from birth to age 22, we're there for children in the city of Detroit and Wayne County.
Okay, well, thank you again for coming out.
Thank you. It's been an
Deborah.
honor to
It's
talk
been
to
an honor,
you.
privilege. I appreciate Tamika just making the phone call and getting this,
Yeah.
getting us connected. And if you would like to reach the Children's Center, the number is listed right below me right now. So make sure you get in touch with the Children's Center, get in touch with Deborah Matthews, find out how you can help out in foster care and adopting. And also, if you have all the other needs she discussed, if you have a need to reach out to them for some behavior issues that or some troubles or struggles that the family may be going through, they're there for you. So thank you very much for joining us again with Nonprofit Spotlight, and we'll be seeing you soon for some more great things that are happening in our community.